All right, y'all. So we're on the back of the Pokemon Direct, and there's a lot I want to talk about. Okay, there's a ton I need to talk about in regards to this, so I'll try to keep it short. But first things first, I know there's so much hype around the games. I know there's so much coming. I heard about this a while back, and I am been in my life a long time Wallace and Gromit fan, and to know that Aardman is working with Pokemon, I was stoked to see what came up. And well, if anybody's actually a fan of like Aardman animation, specifically Shaun the Sheep, you'll recognize this. This will all just feel just so at home. But this new series, the Surfetched and Pichu, I could not be more excited for this. I know it's a silly thing. I get it's a silly thing, but it's a really comfortable place to be because it's both the animation studio that I love. They're doing something very comfortable and familiar here with two characters that I don't think really get a lot of shine. Everybody talks about Pikachu. No one talks about Pichu. Surfetched is just whatever Surfetched is. It's it's very funny, and I cannot wait to see how this plays out. So just throw that out there, just opening it up with that because that has me hyped. But let's talk about a lot of the stuff that really came with this direct. Now we're gonna first things first. We're gonna talk about kind of everything that's coming to Scarlet and Violet, and then we'll get into Legends ZA because there's a decent amount of decent chunk to talk about there. We've got new codes. We're gonna get a code for a tracksuit. You'll be able to get basically either one through either game. I'm lucky enough to have both games, so I'll be acquiring both of these, and we'll talk about all that here shortly. But arguably with Scarlet and Violet, the real hype is over here. Okay, so the shiny treasures of ruin, basically the legendaries ish. I guess are they legendaries or the mythicals? I think they're technically legendaries for the game, not the box arts, obviously. But I do expect those to come at some point here shortly. So Wo-Chen will begin here tomorrow. Actually, it'll be kicking off tomorrow and running through the 3rd of August. Now, here's the deal: if what they said is true, you will not be able to catch the shiny until a million of these dudes have been defeated. So yeah. So claim 1 million victories against each of the ruinous Pokemon. So we basically got to do tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of these before the shiny really is obtainable. So what this is encouraging people to do is log in every day, run the raids, and play them. And we'll obviously be talking about this. This is one of those rarities. Well, yes, you can solo it. The goal here obviously is to raid and to beat them. Now, we will still try to come up with a solo strategy for it. But the goal, once again, is defeat them and do it online and get people involved in playing and all that good stuff. But once again, I am going to try to, per usual, bring you guys the solo run on that. I don't know how well that'll play out, but we'll give it our best shot. But yeah, that's really exciting. So we'll be able to finally get the shiny versions of the legendaries. We've been talking about this for a long time, and this kind of coincides with what I talked about before, where it comes to, like Sword and Shield had their shinies coming, and it happened right as the new game was dropping, right? So this is essentially that. So Koraidon and Miraidon should be immediately after this, and then we'll probably get some random raids with shiny possibilities for some of the other stuff that we have in the DLC. So that'll be very, very interesting. We already had Rayquaza. We know that these things are out there. We know that they're a distinct possibility. So if you've been looking for the other legendaries in the DLC, this is a great opportunity. Now, I haven't really covered those too many. I covered a few of them, but I haven't really covered a bunch of them. So if you guys want to see catching the actual legendaries in the DLC, let me know, and I will start doing that again. I did a couple off camera, and we can kind of go back and redo that. And I got a buddy that's going through it too, and maybe we can get him to jump in on some of these as well. So a lot of cool stuff. We'll be doing some of that tonight on stream as well. So stream tonight should be around 10 p.m. Eastern time. Come join us. We'll be doing the legendary hunts. We'll be doing probably I got to reach out to my buddy here. Might be doing some more Union Circle tonight. It'll be a lot of fun. So join in for that. But this is hype. This is crazy hype. So yeah, sorry, I have a lot to say. Pokemon Champions. So this is a really, really interesting situation. Now, I've kind of taken upon myself to infer a little bit about what this is going to be. We've gotten a little bit of information before. We have seen in here that obviously there's going to be terrestrialization. There's going to be Gigantamaxing. I'm assuming there's going to be Megas. It'll be really, really, really interesting to see all that in a competitive event. What I think is really interesting about this, we're jumping ahead here. Let me back up a little bit. So they talk about here how you can do modification of your Pokemon basically on the fly. So here, somebody's just adjusting their EV stats on the fly without having to, like, train them in the game and all that stuff. So I wonder how much of this is, for those of you guys that do Pokemon Showdown, basically you dropping them on and they instantly have perfect IVs. You can change your stats. You can change all that. This is essentially Pokemon Showdown official. So this is amazing. I'm hoping and I'm thinking, I believe they said that it's going to have home compatibility, so you'll be able to pull over your Pokemon that you've trained and whatever in the other games. But it seems like these EV stats are all very flexible. And I'm wondering if when you drop them on it, if they just instantly get perfect IVs, which would make them instantly competitive. It'll be interesting to see how much of this is flexible, whether you can change natures and all that, and will that transfer over to the other games? Because that would kind of be broken in a way, If you could bring a Pokemon in here, change their nature, change their EVs, and then swap them to the other game, you could circumvent a whole lot of, like, that EV training stuff in the other games that becomes, for lack of a better word, cumbersome. You guys know when I do a lot of my raid builds, I do all the EV training, I do all that stuff, and I can tell you sometimes I can go through $1 million+ Pokédollars just prepping for a video to do some of that content. So this could, Pokédollars, not real dollars. Don't get too excited. Pockets aren't that deep. So yeah, this could be a game changer, but I kind of suspect that what's going to happen is when you do all that training, more than likely when you transfer it back to home, it'll be in its original form, or the version you bring over from home will just be kind of like a borrowed copy of it, and then all the manipulation here is just in this game, that it never actually transfers it from home. Because really, if you bring it over from home, you do all this training for free, and then send it back over, then that's kind of busted. Alternatively, it does seem, you can see there's like a point system up top there, so I'm guessing that point system has something to do with it too, but only time will tell. This, funny enough, got me more excited than the launch of the game because it presents a lot of questions. So for me, as somebody who does a lot of content, building raids, building things like that, the ability to do EV training here, I know I'm getting kind of, it's a bit offset from what the game is intended to be, but I'm always looking for utilities, and I've got a whole video coming out on that here later on, probably this weekend, regarding that specifically, and you'll see what I mean by that. But when it comes to training your Pokemon in the other games, it can be really cumbersome. And if this is a way to kind of fast track that, that would be very interesting as somebody who does a lot of that for these games. If not, who knows? But it's just very, very interesting to me. Very interesting to me. This is coming out next year. I'm stoked for it. I definitely will be doing some competitive online. I know my competitive play is not the best, but we are going to work really hard to improve that quite a bit. Also, I've been getting into Pokemon cards, and actually I've gotten pretty good at the TCG Pocket battles. So if you guys want to see some of those battles, let me know. The only problem with that game is the metas are very strong, and if you're not in the meta, you're not in the meta, but it be what it be. Anyway, guys, let's move on. That's one thing I didn't see here. I expected to see something for TCG Pocket, and I didn't see that. EV Grove is almost finished, and we haven't got, I don't think we got an announcement of a new deck. So that was one thing that I didn't see here. But of course, the one thing that we all came to see, the one thing that's universal here, Legends ZA, we knew this was coming, and of course, we have the introduction of Mega Dragonite. Now, I don't know how I feel about the design of Mega Dragonite, but I love the idea of Dragonite getting a Mega. So, the Mega Dragonite design, I know a lot of it's coming from Dratini. A lot of it it's culminating in all those weird evolutions that don't make a lot of sense going into Dragonite, and it's kind of tying them together. So, honestly, it's a really comfortable place to be, sort of. I'm not sold on the design yet, but honestly, the idea of Dragonite getting a meta is just, or getting a mega is huge. So that is awesome. One thing they didn't show yet is the evolutions of our starters. Our starters have not evolved in the trailer yet, which leads me to believe that they are 100% going to be getting some kind of a regional form. And what will that form look like? I looked through this a little bit. I didn't see like if there were any leaks. Usually Pokemon's really good with their editing about preventing leaks and things like that. We got a lot of what the story is going to entail and what is going to be involved in the actual gameplay. This looks really good. They did admit that this is rendered on the Switch 2, and I'm sure on like Switch 2 dev kits, not on the actual Switch 2 hardware. So, take this with a grain of salt. If you're on a regular Switch playing this, it is not going to look like this. It'll probably look pretty decent, but it is going to run pretty laggy and things like that. Let's just be completely frank about it. I've been a long, basically since the game came out, I have said I firmly believe that Scarlet and Violet was tested on upgraded hardware. It was never intended to be showcased on the base 10-year-old Switch hardware, but go back to all the rumors of the Switch Pro and all that at that time and then make your own assessment. But yeah, this looks really, really, really good. You have basically he seems like the new Giovanni. He's the boss of the Rust Syndicate, so that leads me to believe he's like an amalgam to Giovanni, so to speak. Just very interesting here. But yeah, a lot of customization of the characters. I love that. You can actually customize the Pokemon. I mean, very specifically Frou-Frou here. You can, or Furfrou, I'm sorry. You can very specifically, modify this Pokemon. So she's obviously going to be the big draw to this game. She is this game's Pikachu, so to speak. So a lot of interesting customization options there. But yeah, there's so much to be hyped for. They did give us a release date on that. We'll get to that here in a minute. There's just a lot of lore, a lot of stories, and what's really interesting here is they're already hyping. Let's get to it here towards the end. They're already hyping. Look at all the megas, classic megas, and Eternal Floettes. So that's pretty awesome. Zygardes everywhere. So let's talk about the Zygardes for a second. So October 16th, you saw there. So you'll see these Zygarde cells hidden all over the city. I'm going to gather that this is going to be, and we talked about it before, those of you that played Legends Arceus, where you were catching the wisps, that's more than likely what I'm assuming this is going to be, where you'll run into Zygarde at some point through catching these. With the wisps, you had to do those to get to Spiritomb. I'm guessing that's what it is here, and then eventually you'll get to Zygarde. So, very interesting that. Obviously, there's some kind of exchange going on here. Speaking of Zygarde, I'm going to gather this is probably some kind of a cutscene as you're getting closer. But yes, it is dropping on October the 16th of this year. You can pre-order this sucker. I will be getting a Switch 2 for this. I haven't yet, but they've not been hard to obtain so far. I am warning you right now, going into the holiday season, it is going to be very, very difficult. So if you want to get your Switch 2, probably acquire it before the end of August. I'm going to try to acquire mine probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And then, but I got to get past some of the other stuff we're doing. I'm trying to make it to PokeCon in October and Card Party, and continue doing the Pokemon card events that you guys are about to see coming up here shortly. By the way, guys, if you are into the physical Pokemon cards, I just did an event. I'm working on a master set for 151, and I've got a really, really, really fun story behind all this. So stay tuned. That video should hopefully be out this week. I don't know what time. I got to get it edited. But if you're really hyped about that kind of stuff, this one is, I promise you, something no one else on YouTube is doing, and it's going to be a blast. So, all said and done here. October 16th, very, very exciting. We got Champions next year. Which is really good because we want them to perfect this. We want this to be polished. What they need out of this release is a polished, I won't say perfect game because there's really no such thing, but we need a really strong, polished, amazing, packaged game that they don't have to patch day one. They don't have to do any updates on. Once again, I'm sure the Switch version is going to be glitchy, but I want the Switch 2 version to be like Chef's Kiss. I hope. Fight me. Legends Arceus was great. Out of the box, Legends Arceus was great. So, I expect that. Let me know what you guys think. Like, share, comment. We got a lot coming up here. And like I said, my first Master Collection is coming up. We've got the raids coming up. So stay tuned if you haven't already. Make sure you guys subscribe, and I'll see y'all again really, really soon.